Hi, hello, I'm Hope, and I hope you're all doing well today. Today we'll be reading about how OP's sister scared away a phone scammer. How my sister scared away a phone scammer. Hey y'all, I think I chose a good flair for this. If not, let me know. Instant karma? Well, let's read the story and see. Thought y'all would get a little kick out of this little revenge story. So I, a 20-year-old non-binary, have a 20-year-old sister who, as a kid, loved to freak people out and be weird. For example, after she found out the origin of Ring Around the Rosie, she'd sing it creepily while not blinking. Scared the shit out of the older cousins, lol. Weird kid, funny as hell. Anyways, back when she was in high school, my family had a landline, and we'd constantly get scam callers talking about how our computer had a virus or something like that. Obviously, we never fell for it, but it was annoying. So one day, my sister answered this phone to yet another "Your computer has a virus" scammer, and instead of hanging up, she decided to make sure they'll never call again. She took a deep breath and in the most psychotic corset, "I want to speak to your manager" voice she could muster, she yelled, "Computers are the devil and you're Satan!" According to my mom, who was in the room, there was a brief pause before my sister said, "Aw, he hung up on me." Almost a full year passed before we got any more scam calls on that line. Lamau. Really nice. Hope they got traumatized. Scammers really are so horrible. Also, I think instant karma tag was pretty accurate. The HOA president's long goodbye. Posting on behalf of a friend who isn't on Reddit. This is for you, Jake. When I moved into my suburban neighborhood, I expected peace and quiet. Instead, I walked into a petty dictatorship run by our HOA president, Todd. Todd was the worst kind of leader. The kind who loved power but hated accountability. He enforced ridiculous rules like fining people $200 for leaving their trash cans out a minute past 9 a.m., but blatantly ignored the rules when it suited him. His own yard was a mess of unpermitted structures, and his fence was taller than allowed by city ordinances. But Todd's true sin? Using the HOA as his personal piggy bank. Yikes, that's really bad. I hope he got what he deserved by the end of the story, so let's continue reading it. At first, I tried reasoning with him. My fence was slightly off color because the approved stain wasn't available, and he fined me $500. I explained, provided receipts, and asked for leniency. Todd smirked and said, "Rules are rules," and walked away. That's when I decided I would take him down. Not with screaming or public arguments, but methodically, legally, and in a way he'd never recover from. Step 1. Become the inside man. Todd's first mistake was underestimating me. I volunteered for the HOA board under the guise of wanting to get involved in the community. I played the part of an eager, naive newbie perfectly. For 2 years, I attended every meeting, quietly observing how Todd operated. I learned how he controlled the board by bullying other members and burying them in paperwork. He'd push votes through when only his allies were present and conveniently lose paperwork submitted by dissenting homeowners. I kept my head down, took detailed notes, and waited. My goal was to outlast his term as president so I could begin making changes. Then I discovered Todd's second mistake. He wasn't just a bully, he was a thief. Step 2. Follow the money. Todd loved to brag about how he kept HOA's finances in order, but something didn't add up. The annual HOA fees were high, much higher than in similar neighborhoods. But the common areas were falling apart. The pool was closed half the summer due to maintenance issues, and landscaping looked like it hadn't been touched in months. Okay, this already sounds suspicious. High fees, but no work being done? Okay, anyhow, I started digging. As the HOA treasurer, Todd had access to all the accounts, but he was notoriously cagey about sharing financial details. I asked for the budget during the meeting and Todd laughed it off, saying, "Don't worry, I've got it under control." I filed a formal request for the financial records, which, under HOA rules, he was required to provide. Weeks went by with no response. That's when I started talking to the neighbors. Turns out I wasn't the only one suspicious. Over a dozen homeowners had requested access to the budget over the years, only to be ignored. One neighbor claimed Todd had used HOA funds to install a new patio at his house, while another swore that he's seen Todd's kids at a community pool during its maintenance closure. Armed with these suspicions, I filed a formal complaint to the HOA board, forcing Todd to provide the records. He stalled, but I wasn't backing down. Step 3. Build the case. When Todd finally handed over the financial documents, they were a mess. Invoices were missing, payments were mislabeled, and some expenses were downright bizarre. A $50,000 landscaping fee paid to a company that didn't exist. Thousands spent on administrative costs with no explanation. I cross-referenced the HOA's bank statements with public records and found the smoking gun. Todd was funneling money to his personal accounts. Even better, I discovered Todd had been inflating contractor fees, pocketing the difference, and splitting the profits with his buddy, a shady contractor who handled most of the HOA's maintenance. I compiled everything into a detailed report, complete with spreadsheets, photos, and notarized statements from the neighbors who had seen Todd's anting firsthand. Ah, yes. A good old classic. I paid myself with your money, but I made it look legit. Step 4. The coup. I waited for the annual HOA meeting, which was typically a snooze fest attended by only a handful of homeowners. But this time, I made sure people showed up. I spent weeks knocking on doors, explaining what Todd had been up to. I didn't share everything, just enough to get people angry and curious. On the night of the meeting, the room was packed. Todd started the meeting as usual, droning about how difficult it was to manage the HOA and how much he'd sacrificed for the community. That's when I stood up. I calmly asked if he could explain the discrepancies in the budget. Todd laughed nervously and said, "I don't think this is the time or place." I replied, "Actually, Todd, this is the perfect time." I handed out copies of my report to everyone in the room. The mood shifted instantly. People started reading, whispering, and then shouting. Todd tried to regain control, but it was too late. I called for a vote to remove him as the president. By the end of the night, Todd was out. Step 5. The final blow. After Todd was removed, we hired an independent auditor to go through the HOA's finances. They had confirmed everything. Todd had embezzled over $50,000, mismanaged tens of thousands more, and committed multiple accounts of fraud. We reported him to the police and filed a civil lawsuit to recover the stolen funds. But it didn't end there. Todd's shady contractor buddy was also exposed and banned from doing business in the county. Todd had to sell his house and pay restoration and legal fees. His name became a running joke in the neighborhood, and no one would touch him professionally. With Todd gone, we restructured the HOA to prevent another dictator from taking over. We implemented term limits, required multiple board members to approve financial decisions, and created an online portal so all homeowners could access budgets and meeting minutes. Look, I'm still not a big fan of HOAs, but at very least, if there is one, it's nice to hear you made it run as it should. The aftermath. Every time I walk past Todd's house, now owned by a lovely family, I smile. The pool is open, the landscaping is beautiful, and the HOA's fees are lower than ever. Todd, meanwhile, moved to a neighboring town, where he reportedly tried to join another HOA board, only to be laughed out of the room when someone googled his name. Justice wasn't just served, it was plated, garnished, and savored. As it should be. Okay, I can already feel just by reading the title, this one is going to be a good one. And it's called Tricking My Slacker Coworker into Sabotaging Himself. I work in an office with a guy I call Seth. Seth is that coworker everyone knows. Lazy, always passing his work onto someone else, and somehow always getting away with it. He'll sit around on his phone or go to the bathroom every 10 minutes. He's the kind of guy who will show up late, make some excuse about traffic, and then disappear for lunch for 2 hours. For the past 6 months, Seth's favorite target has been me. He'll send emails asking if I can help out with a project, but what he really means is do all the work while he takes the credit. I complained to my boss a couple of times, but somehow Seth always managed to weasel out his way out of trouble. The final straw came when he passed off a major report that was due to a client in 2 days, dumping it on me last minute. One day I casually asked him if he was good with Excel, and he admitted he didn't know much about it. Perfect. The next time Seth tried to dump a bunch of spreadsheets on me to organize for this next report, I agreed. But this time, I embedded a series of hidden formulas into the documents. These formulas didn't do anything important, just enough to mess with the numbers if someone didn't know how to check for the hidden cells. It took me a little time, but I was careful not to make it too obvious. The kicker? Every time Seth tried to copy and paste the data into his report, it would scramble everything just enough to be completely useless. On the day the report was due, Seth slacked off as usual, assuming I had handled it, like always. When the client called, furious because the report was filled with nonsense numbers, Seth panicked. He rushed to fix it, but every time he tried to fix one part of the report, something else would break. He came to me fronting and asked for help. I acted confused and said, "Oh, I don't know what happened. Maybe it's a glitch." I gave him some vague advice and watched as he spent the entire day trying to salvage his mess. Okay, this is so savage but deserved. Our boss found out, and for once, Seth couldn't talk his way out of it. He got lambasted for screwing up such an important project, and he was put on a temporary leave without pay. I guess he'll be doing his own work from now on. Was asked why I was wearing a mask. Told them the truth. To preface, this took place in late 2021, which makes sense since that was, about the peak of the epidemic, 2020, 2021, somewhere around that. Anyhow, mask mandates were still intact in my area, but that didn't stop people from complaining about it. I worked at a shoe store, and we were required to wear our masks. Some customers didn't like that, but usually they would make it known through dirty looks or quick comments. This one customer, though, took things way too far. I was at the register and the customer comes up to me, and before saying anything, before I even got the chance to greet her, she asks, "Y'all still gotta wear masks? That's ridiculous." Now, I've experienced my fair share of politics at this store. I was the only person not of color that worked there, so I would get a lot of jokes spanning toward whiteys as they would assume I would agree with them. I assumed this customer was making a joke, and I just politely responded, "I just feel safer with it on," and tried to move on. She, however, didn't let go. She begged me about, "It's safe, you don't need it," and "It isn't as bad as the government is making it out to be." I was getting annoyed, but did my best to ignore it. But then she said, "No one actually died from COVID." Oof, I think I know where this is going. I paused, looked at her and told her, "My best friend's dad died from it. He was a completely healthy person, and I just had to let my friend sleep on my floor while he found a new place to live. My dad is immunocompromised, so I'd rather not take the risk. I'm not going to be the reason my dad dies, and you aren't going to force me to put my dad in danger." She was quiet for the remainder of the transaction, and I had to take my break for a few minutes later to calm down. I swear, sometimes the dumbest people have the best luck. Nobody died from COVID? Are you kidding me? Just because no one died that you personally know of doesn't mean that all the reported deaths were fake. You should just be grateful that you or someone you know didn't suffer that fate. And of course, death wasn't even all of it. Many people, yes, even the ones that were perfectly healthy, suffered great complications and now live with the consequences of COVID for the rest of their lives. Now, I personally am grateful that even though I did get COVID, I didn't have any complications, nor none of my friends and family. But I know that wasn't the case for everybody, and my heart really goes to everyone who lost people due to the pandemic or got some serious lasting effects because of it. I'm really sorry this happened to you, and I'm really sorry there are people even now still denying it happened when it so clearly happened. Now, let's move on from a bit morbid and just go to a funny post. Stop me in the street, I'll invite Satan to your church. Hi everyone, long time lurker, novice commenter, first time poster. This happened a few years back when I was doing my year abroad in uni, in exotic Newark, New Jersey. Americans tend to get a kick out of the fact that me, a European student, would do a year abroad in New Jersey of all places. I noticed, in general, a bunch of people would stop students on the street to try and get us to attend their churches. I normally politely declined and just walked away while smiling and saying goodbye. Not much of an issue, just a few seconds. But this day was different. I'll be 100% honest and say I was in a bad mood. I was in a depressive episode, frustrated with some things my uni back in home messed up, and my New Jersey university didn't know what to do, etc., etc., etc. So I decided to go for a walk to blow off some steam off. Cue to a young, very religious guy stopping me in the middle of the sidewalk. I take my earphones out, smile, listen to his elevator speech on why I should go with him to his church, and politely decline. But he won't take a no for an answer. I tell him I don't believe in Christianity and try to move past him, but he blocks my path and tells me, "We invite people from every religion to come and learn." Now, I was getting frustrated, and that gave me the best idea. It went like this, me. "Are you sure?" Him. "Of course!" Some accepting, blabbling about how they preach to people from every religion, blah blah, don't remember exactly. Me. "Even me being a Satanist? That's great! If that's the case, I'll go!" He just stayed there, wide open mouth, frozen and in silence, so I just smiled and left. He didn't know how to react to having just invited Satan to his church. Now, for extra info, I'm not a Satanist, I'm an agnostic atheist, but I'll say to Satanists worldwide my deepest thank you for getting me out of this situation without the need to break down or scream at a stranger to leave me alone. And everything was resolved with my uni status the day after. Okay, this was golden. Also, here's a comment I saw underneath the post. If you wanted some extra fun, I could see you continuing, "I thought your church was accepting people from every religion," and watch him try to rescind his offer for you to join him. Amazing idea, but makes me worry just a little bit that maybe the guy would go back to trying and converting you. I mean, imagine the stories he could tell of being able to convert a Satanist. Yeah, let's just be glad he was shocked enough to let you go on with your day. Not going to pay me overtime? Think again. I was discussing this subreddit with a good friend, and he said, "Boy, have I got a story that'll fit." It wasn't his story, but his brother, and I sat with him and he got the details. Buckle up, it's a good one, and a long one. Let's call him Bob. Bob has been fiddling with computers ever since he was a kid, and knows them pretty well. As with most IT people, he moved from job to job. The employer he worked for was a service/distribution company, and there were 2 IT employees. The company was located in Ontario, Canada. About 3 years ago, Bob's employer decided to modernize their software. They had separate programs for dispatching, for inventory, for payroll, and finances. And it was a complicated moving information from one program to the other. They decided to get an ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning, program, and Bob recommended one that he knew inside out from a previous employer. For those of you who don't know, an ERP program handles everything: purchase orders, sales, inventory, personnel, vendors, customers, all of it. You can run a report and find out which customer had bought the most parts, ABC, in the last year, which salesman had improved their numbers the most, which vendor had the fastest delivery time, which shipper packed the most orders. Everyone in the company used the ERP program, but it was very complicated, and they used the aspects of it that related to their position. For example, the receiver would accept a shipment, verify the quantity, confirm it was received, and the inventory stats would be available for the salespeople if they wanted to look up how many were on hand. The receiver didn't care what the price was or who the vendor was. They just did their job. Bob was run ragged during the implementation process, but he managed to train most of the employees on their aspects, and after a few months, everything was running fairly smoothly. Bob still got tickets for tweaks in the operation of the software and occasional hardware IT issues. Then the company decided to expand their footprint and was marketing into different time zones. That messed everything up. Atlantic Canada is 90 minutes early, so if someone sent an email or an order at 8 a.m. their time, it would arrive at 6:30 a.m. Ontario time. Pacific Canada is 3 hours late, so an email sent at 3 p.m. Vancouver time would arrive at 6 p.m. This stretched out the day, so many staff came in early and worked late. Bob would arrive at 8 a.m. and there would be people that demanded his immediate assistance and were annoyed that he didn't respond instantly, even though the request was submitted before his start time. Same with late in the day. His phone would ring at dinner time with people that wanted his help right now. They decided to stagger his and his IT colleagues' shift times. Bob would start at 6 a.m. and work till 2:30, and his colleague would start at 10 a.m. and work till 7 p.m. Bob's colleague had kids and refused the shift change. The employer insisted. The colleague quit. That meant Bob was the only person in the IT department. The employer said that they would look to hire a new IT guy, but they had trouble finding one that knew the ERP system, and they were offering well under a market value salary. Bob asked for a raise and was denied. Then he wanted overtime, and the employer told him that as an IT specialist, he was exempt from overtime laws in Ontario. Bob looked it up, and the employer was correct. This went on for some time, and he knew lots of IT people socially. They told him what the company was offering, and Bob knew they wouldn't find another tech. Things went downhill from there. Bob would get chewed out if he missed a call or an email, no matter what time he came in. He had to train new hires in the ERP systems, as well as take care of the hardware. He asked repeatedly for better compensation, and he was denied. So he planned to get a new job. Now here's the revenge. Bob had access to the entirety of the ERP system. When the user signed in, the time was logged, and even if they didn't sign out, after 15 minutes it would log them out anyway. Everyone in the company was on salary, and many of them came in early and stayed late. Ontario labor law stated that even salaried workers are entitled to overtime after 44 hours a week, unless they were managers or supervisors. So Bob jumped into the program and ran a report for each employee that wasn't a manager, all the way back to when the ERP program was started. Then he reached out to an employment lawyer and got the okay to refer employees to him. Bob lined up another job, and after he left, every employee in the company got an email with an Excel sheet showing the hours they had put in past 44 hours a week. The subject line said, "You're legally entitled to overtime pay." In the body of the email was lawyer's name. The shit hit the fan. Almost every employee authorized the lawyer to negotiate with the company on their behalf, and the company had to pay a ton of money. All the company had to do was pay Bob for the extra work he put in. Instead, they had to pay almost everyone. Honestly, it doesn't feel so much of a revenge story, more so just getting what they were legally obligated to. But hey, I love it nonetheless. I mean, who knows how long this company would have kept on getting away with it if it weren't for Bob. Mess with the wrong orphan. This is on behalf of my brother-in-law. Background: his mom passed away when he was in his early 20s. We were all at a little gathering last week, and one of the friends brought along her husband. Husband is a huge Creed fan. We'll call him Fanboy. Fanboy is going on and on to brother-in-law about how he has to go to upcoming Creed concert. Brother-in-law tries to politely shut him down. No, they're not for me. Really, not my speed, etc., etc. Fanboy wasn't getting it. He kept insisting that brother-in-law was wrong for refusing to go to the concert. Finally, brother-in-law had enough. He turns to Fanboy and in front of everyone goes, "Dude, the reason I don't like Creed is because on the day of my mom's funeral, my now ex-girlfriend went to Creed concert instead." Fanboy went white. He looked, just blinked at brother-in-law for a full 5 seconds. Desperate to save face, Fanboy goes, "Well, at least you're now married to wife now, so that'll never happen again." Oof, buddy. A softball pitch, really. I braced myself for the inevitable home run and brother-in-law. Of course it won't, since both of my parents are dead. Maybe Fanboy will cool it next time. Honestly, I just hate it when people get all up in your business and keep insisting even after you decline. So, let's hope that taught him a lesson to not be so invasive. Dressed overly casual at a designer store so that the rude sales rep wouldn't get commission. I don't typically buy a lot of designer clothing, but when I do go shopping, I dress pretty casually. Last week, I was strolling to the mall and there was this designer backpack on display that caught my attention. Wearing a hoodie and ripped jeans, I went inside the store to inquire about the price of the backpack. I waited around 10 minutes for someone to help me until I decided to go up to one of the sales representatives myself. She told me to wait because she was helping another customer, so I sat down and waited. I saw her in the corner of the store just standing, not doing anything. I decided to wait another 5 minutes for her to come back, but she never did. I walked back to her and told her I wanted to inquire about the backpack. I asked her if she could bring me one from the back room so I could take a closer look at it. She told me that she wouldn't be able to do that unless I was planning on purchasing the item. She seemed really annoyed with my request. Before I could say anything else, she quickly walked away to help another customer. So basically, she already profiled you as someone who isn't going to buy the backpack. How rude. Anyhow, let's continue reading this. I'm a 25-year-old woman and I could tell she didn't think I was serious about purchasing it and didn't want to waste her time. I would have purchased it then and there if she hadn't been so dismissive. A few days later, I went back into the store. This time, I made sure to dress even more casually than before. I walked in, a pair of sweatpants, running shoes, a tank top, and a zip-up. The same lady was working that day and turned her back on me as soon as I walked in. I went up to one of the other sales representatives. This guy was younger, smiling and seemed eager to help. And I told him I wanted to purchase the backpack and he gladly went inside and got it for me. He even asked if I'd like to take a look at it before buying. I thanked him and he checked me out. The store manager was also by the cashier and I let him know that I came in last week and that the lady wouldn't let me see the product before purchasing it. He was upset to hear this and told me this wasn't the first time he had received a complaint about her. The item was a few grand and all the commission went towards the junior. He was so kind and grateful. She avoided eye contact with me after she got told off by her manager and I smiled at her as I walked out of the store. Don't judge the book by its cover. Well, she got what she deserved, which in this case was nothing. Though I will also put at least a little blame on the commission system as a whole. It's so stupid. Your pay shouldn't be based on whether or not you can sell an item and for how much you can sell it. As long as you're doing your job as you should, that's really all there should be to it. And I'm not saying this just like that. I would be lying if I said this was the first time I've heard a story about these commissions turning into unhealthy competitiveness between coworkers, as well as customers that don't seem wealthy, being dismissed, ignored, and just overall being treated worse. Just like in this post. Hey, sorry for interrupting the video, but I just wanted to let you know I made a game called Deliberation. It's a would you rather social card game. Deliberation is a really fun game you can play with friends or family. Depending on when you're watching this video, the game will be or already is available on Kickstarter. If you're interested, check the link in the description. Thank you, and now back to the video. Now this next post is titled Airport Justice. Not my revenge, but some justice. Well, we do love justice. I was flying solo in my early 20s at a small airport in Europe, waiting to pass through security in the early morning. Because of the time, the line for security was not too long, maybe 20 or so people waiting. I was traveling with just a large backpack. There was only one agent serving the whole line. There was a couple queued behind me with a big rolling suitcase, which they were pushing in front of them. As the line crawled forward and I took a few steps forward to close the gap, the woman pushing her suitcase rammed it into the back of my legs. At first I didn't react because accidents happen and I wasn't injured or anything. But then it happened again and again. Every time the line moved and I followed, I would get rammed by their suitcase. I wasn't in their way or slowing them down, I was literally just ahead of them in line. I chose to walk the path of peace and just tried my best to dodge them ramming me, at times just staring at them while they did it. They saw me reacting, they just kept doing it. I didn't speak the language they did, but they were basically muttering and grumbling to each other. I'm assuming they were complaining about the wait. But Jesus, hurting a random stranger won't speed things up. My best guess is that they were trying to bait me into conflict. Who knows? A few times that they hit me, I looked up at the airport agent and made eye contact. I could tell they saw what was happening between me and those assholes. Also, not one person in the line had been pulled aside for extra screening. Well, I think we all can see where this is going. It was finally my turn to go through the security. I walked through no problem, then got sweet satisfaction of watching the assholes behind me get stopped and directed into the extra full search room. In my heart, I felt like the airport agent was getting revenge for me. This was such a nice story. Even if it wasn't you doing the revenge, the justice was still served. If you're liking this video, give it a like. And don't forget to subscribe. This next post is juicy, also really funny, so let's just read it. My half-sister wanted to show up in a wedding dress to my engagement party, so I changed the party theme so she would fit right in. My half-sister Heather and I never really got along. Also, I'm guessing it's in quote marks since it's a fake name, really common with these stories. We're both 24. My father left my mother for her mother, and we were born the same month, 20 days apart. It has always been weird. Can we just take a second to acknowledge how shitty the father is? Like, seriously? Leaving your pregnant, I'm assuming wife, for another woman? And let's be honest, they were for sure cheating. But I think I'm getting ahead of myself, plus that's not what this story is about. It doesn't help that Heather's mom hates me and my mom. By extension, Heather and I didn't have the best relationship. She has always tried to one-up me, even though we both have a similar economic background. I can give examples of this, but for the sake of the world limit, won't write them here. So now my fiancé and I got engaged last month and had our engagement party this Saturday. We've planned it originally as a casual formal event. Nice dresses, but not I'm going to the Met Gala ball. Nice, more like we're going to a good restaurant nice. Anyway, my cousin hits me up saying she has to show me something. It was a picture of the dress Heather was going to wear. This dress, Jesus Christ, it can only be described as opulent. It was long and white, strapless with sewn-in crystals and golden accents. I'm pretty sure it's a wedding dress, but I can't be 100% sure. This made me really mad, so I decided, fuck that. I started texting people, telling them that there had been a change of plans, and instead of a casual formal, I decided to make a costume party. My mother's side is crazy for Halloween, so they were immediately on board. Understandable. Halloween is pretty cool. It's the only time of the year when people don't look at me weirdly for having horns. I told my father via text and asked him to forward the message to Heather and her mother, knowing full well that he would forget or leave it to the last minute. Saturday comes along, guests start showing up, most of them in costumes. Some didn't have time to get one. We just provided them with fun hats and cheap wigs. My dad, Heather, and her mother came like an hour late. As soon as she notices that everyone was either wearing elaborate costumes or weird accessories and she didn't stand out, she lost it. Especially when my fiancé came along and told her that her bride dress looked amazing for a cheap costume. Golden comment, you've truly picked the right person to marry. She left crying and her mother and my father told me that I was being childish and I could have told Heather myself and not have tasked my father. Nah, you did this perfectly. You minimized the drama, had a fun party, and got some sweet revenge. Well done, OP. Well, thank you for watching. With your help, I'll be back in hell in no time. Now our next post is about scaring scammers. I think we can all agree that we dislike scammers and a bit of petty revenge is just what we need. Hi all! Long time lurker, first time writer, plus English isn't my native language, so please excuse any bad grammar or wrong words being used. So I've been receiving calls on my landline from outside my country for a couple of days/weeks so far. The phone number calling me changes every time, including the country prefix, so they've been obviously spoofing their ID. When I pick up the phone, an automated message says, "This is PayPal. We've recognized a transaction over 499 euros. For speaking with one of our agents, please press 1," or something like that. Now, usually I don't answer these calls, but out of curiosity, I started doing it. Once I press 1 on my phone, some dude with a heavy Indian accent starts talking. When he's done with his intro, I start with something I think might scare them a bit. "Police headquarters, fraud department. What did you say your name was again?" Usually they hang up. One or two got rude, which makes me smile even more. There's not much else I can do about it, because once I block a country prefix from calling me, they just change the prefix. But at least I can have some fun, plus I'm wasting their time. And here we have some commenters that commented on this post. My dad likes to ask them to hold on for a minute, then mutes his phone and leaves it until they hang up. 0 effort, maximum reward. Love it. That is the best way to do it. If you waste their time, they aren't making money. I used to take over the conversation with random questions. What country is this? What is the weather there? Etc. Then, after about half an hour, I tell them that this isn't my phone. I love fucking with them for a while and then I ask, "So, what do these calls do to your call center metrics when I've just wasted 10 minutes of your time?" They always get pissed off. "If you knew it was a scam, why did you waste my time?" Like, hello? I wasted 10 minutes of your time. That was 10 minutes you weren't scamming a grandma, so yeah, my time was well spent. Do you feel good about wasting your time? Again, based on my comments about keeping you off the line with grandma, yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about myself. And yes, I agree with these comments so much. I mean, wasting their time really is one of the good stuff you can even do in these situations. I mean, you can probably report them somewhere, but will there be anything done about them? Doubt it. Though there are a bunch of YouTubers that troll scammers, so maybe the number isn't spoofed, or if it's an email or something like that, you can send it to them. Again, I'm not sure about logistics, but I think it's still worth checking out. Click on the screen to watch a video all about malicious campaigns. And thank you for watching this video. With your help, I'll be back in hell in no time.